25 years experience working across the film and television landscape. Zanele has also sat on a number of prestigious boards, and she's including being the current chairperson of SWIFT. Zanele is also committed to locally building better local production capacity and a pipeline of industry talent in the country. Really excited to welcome Zanele to Sister Brunch. Welcome, Zanele.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much for joining. Hi. So firstly, Zanele, before we get into it, it's a really crazy and uncertain time right now, unprecedented time. We just wanted to know how you were doing and how you were coping through this time.
I must say that the first couple of weeks were almost surreal. It took a while for this thing to really sink in terms of how actually not just myself but the entire world is on lockdown. Things have come to a complete halt. Life as we've known it has changed completely. So for the first weeks it was kind of difficult. You're almost like as a robot, just going through things. And then really went through a valley for a while because the reality of it, I guess, kind of sank in. But now it's like this is the new, as my sister calls it, the new abnormal. So you just have to adjust to it and do the best that you can. It is, unfortunately, it is what it is. You just have to cope. In LA right now, the time is different. So if I'm flying to LA and I get to LA, I cannot be operating on South African time. I have to operate on LA time because that's what time it is. And that's how I feel right now about what we're going through. So it takes a lot of effort, really, on my side, prayer and meditation, to really get into your day, start there, and then get into your and prep yourself to just function as if things were normal, even though they are not.
Yeah, definitely. No, we can definitely relate to that. And I think a lot of the people we've spoken to since lockdown have said very similar things. It's like, it was crazy at the beginning, especially to kind of think that this is something that's affecting everyone in the world. We're all in this together, but then again, we all have to find our own individual coping mechanisms or ways to deal with it. And as you said, I like that, what your sister said, that it's the new abnormal. I like that. Yeah, definitely. So Zanele, you've worked in the media industry, for more than 25 years, and I'm sure you've experienced so much. I just wanted to know if you could share a career highlight or a few. I can't imagine you could choose one, but yeah.
You're right. There's so many. But I think for me personally, the career highlight was being selected by Discovery Communications, the parent company of Discovery TLC and Animal Planet, on a scholarship, on a fellowship program, actually, to go and live in the US, do my master's and work for them for a number of years. So that got me into the broadcasting space and to understand what broadcasting was all about, because I was working prior to that for an independent production company. It was working for Penguin Films when I started in the industry.
Right.
So that was a career highlight in that I got to really understand the business of broadcasting, what it takes. And when I arrived at Discovery, they were actually launching Animal Planet. And I was able to work from the marketing department, the programming department, all the departments that were involved in actually launching the channel. Things like what are acquisitions, getting to know about business affairs and how they put the deals for acquisition together. So that's a kind of highlight because it really the business of broadcasting. And then the other highlight for me was really joining ETV upon my return to South Africa. ETV at the time was really a new kid on the block, and they were doing amazing things in the broadcasting space. They were challenging the status quo. They were coming up with new ways of presenting programming, and that was exciting for me. And I joined ETV when literally there were two of us in the local programming department, two people that managed all local content. So it helped me to grow in a way that I don't think I would have been able to, to grow had there been more people there.
Yeah.
And then my experience as well coming from the US, who at the time back then in 2005 were did PhD, coming back home. But there was just a lot that I was able to bring back. Being a small company, having to do so much.
Yeah.
You grow, holistically. You get grounded.
Yeah.
As an individual. So those are, I would say, are the two. There's others, but that stand out.
Yeah, definitely. I can imagine there'd be heaps. But also, when you look at your time in the industry and you look at the industry as a whole, what would you say is the most difficult aspect of it?
I must say there are two areas that are very difficult for me, and one of them is what we're in the middle of right now. But before I come to issues of gender-based violence and sexual harassment, the other difficult as a Black person, first and foremost, coming into the industry, no matter your experience, your education, the industry is still not as transformed as one would have hoped after such a long time. And it's very difficult to enter the industry. It's very difficult to get an opportunity as a young person coming, especially a Black person coming into the industry. That for me really is challenging, and it really breaks my heart, really, that I had the same challenges 20 odd years ago, and young people that are coming in are still facing the same challenges. That for me is just unacceptable, The other one that is very difficult is really issue around sexual harassment in the industry. Look, I was protected in some ways because I work casting side of things, where there are proper structures, where there are policies. You have a human resource department that you can go to report. Not that you would receive all the help you need. We've seen cases of sexual harassment in corporate and how those are dealt, but at least the structures exist. There are policies that exist. It's a matter of enforcing those policies. But in our industry, by the very nature of our industry being a transient industry where people want job, freelance industry, there is no protection in law, really, for freelance workers in this country. And as a consequence, you don't have recourse or protection when you want to report issues of sexual harassment. And that for me is really tragic that we haven't come to a point where we're organized as an industry, where we are recognized and where we're protected by, the labor laws in this country as freelancers. That is very difficult. And we're in the situation that we're in now, where women are desperate and are going to the media to talk out, to speak out about the harassment and the lack of really a response from producers, people that are supposed to be protecting them, because those structures do not exist that protect them.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. And Zanele, you're the chairperson of SWIFT. Can you explain, just give our listeners a bit of background on what SWIFT is and why an organization like SWIFT is just so important for the film and TV industry in South Africa today?
Okay, SWIFT, which is Sisters Working in Film and Television, is a non-profit organization, and we focus on shared experiences amongst women, our shared experiences and our common concerns in the TV and film industry. So we are working towards advocating for women, and one of the areas that we look into is really equal representation of women in front of and behind the camera, creating safe working spaces for women in the industry, and we know about sexual harassment, so we are working towards that. SWIFT is also important as an organization in the industry because we're also looking at developing women. Women are still underrepresented, or even we don't get the same opportunities in the industry that is still very male dominated, and specifically white male dominated. So we need an organization like SWIFT that will advocate for that, but also that will educate women, develop women, prepare them. We have skills and mentorship subcommittee that looks at different programs around, networking, around just mobilizing women And we also showcase, under Sisterhood Cinema, we showcase women-driven cinema. So we screen films and we partner mostly with festivals. And we have a program that is specifically looking at promoting women made films so that we can promote the narratives around women and women that are making films, so that we do profile them through these initiatives that we do. And then lastly, we engage. We have to engage. We have to be an active industry. We have to partner not only with other women, but we've got to partner organizations, in the industry. As we are partnered now with the GIZ and UN Women, organization, because we have the same common goals and common vision. So that's what we do. So SWIFT is really necessary, because we're not going to see the change that we really want to see in the industry unless we as women mobilize and we advocate for change.
Yes, definitely. And it's so interesting because SWIFT is a fairly new organization, and I remember when it came about and it was first launched, and I was just starting out in the industry as well. And I was like, I can't believe there hasn't been this before. You would think it's so necessary, but it definitely is a necessary organization. And I think, we're so grateful that it exists, because now there's we know that there's an organization that we can go to when we're having trouble, when we're trying to understand things, but also just a space that is created to encourage female filmmakers, women in the industry, to come out and say, let's support each other and engage with one another, but also, as you said, mobilize to make sure that we're having better access and better representation within the industry.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yes. And so you did mention as well, SWIFT has signed on with UN Women and GIFV?
GIZ,
in terms of coming together for the Step It Up project. And, so later today is the official media launch of the Statement of Commitment for Gender Equality in South African Media. Can you tell us more about the statement and how it came about?
Well, we are currently partly funded by GIZ on some projects that we're working on, and we're invited to join them. So there is an advisory committee that was put together from different organizations in the industry that are in the space of women and advancement, on gender issues. And then we began to talk about this, because we have seen that this is a serious pandemic, as the president called it. It is a pandemic. This scourge needs to be dealt with, and the media plays a very important role. We know the power of the media. So as media people and women in the media, we're then invited to be part of these discussions to work towards this program, to ensure that we have something that addresses what the media does and the influence that the media can have in changing the narrative around the gender-based violence and harassment.
Definitely. And I think you speak to my next question, because I know Anne Shongwe, who's the UN Women Rep for SAMCO, she also was saying, these industries, the creative industries, hold power to influence how we view ourselves and society at large, as you've mentioned. And I just wondered if you can speak more to how the media can shape or influence how we view ourselves in a more gender equal way.
It begins, sometimes I ask myself as well, but it begins with the stories that we write. Those narratives are very important, that we begin to portray women in a different way than we've been portrayed. Women have been subservient. Women have not really played important roles, have not been even portrayed as people that can have power, that can change things. That the narrative has really been, in many ways, anti-women, has not really focused. We don't have those powerful women. We don't have really strong women characters that are leads in stories. And even if they are leads, they are not portrayed in a way that really shows that we are not a homogeneous group. We are all very different, as women. and we are holistic as individuals. Yes, we can be powerful, but that kind of power is usually portrayed as very negative. You know, whenever a woman has strength, she is bossy, she has all these negative things. And we see all of that in the media. So it starts with the narrative, the stories that we ourselves write. Secondly, how it can change is on our side, and I won't speak too much on the reporting side of things, on the news side of things, more on our side, in terms of the stories that we write. Where also it will make a difference is making sure that women are writing the stories. They are not written by men about women and for women, which we see a lot of. You know, there's still a lot of males that are writing stories that are about women, and they really don't know us as well. You know, so women need to be writing stories. They need to be head writers of stories so that they can influence their stories that are written. But also we need, because a lot of work in South Africa is commissioned work by television companies. So, I mean, by broadcasters, sorry. So in the broadcasting space as well, we need women in key decision-making positions that can inform the direction of the narrative. Yes, we understand that, you know, broadcasters have to make money. However, even though they have to make money, even though they need the ratings, it doesn't mean that by producing or commissioning stories that are about women, they won't, because it's all in the stories that that they commission. Everything that we have on television today was put there, but nobody even perhaps imagined that they would be as a successful, you know, stories as they are today. And having worked for a company, a broadcaster like Discovery, where Discovery made factual content fashionable, so to speak, and appealing, it can be done. You just have to give these stories an opportunity. Those women can influence the direction in which the broadcasters go and commission and schedule work that is produced by women for women and about positive narratives about women. So we need all of that, you know, to be in place. So there has to be intentionality in terms of broadcasters when they select stories, when they schedule stories, that those stories change the narrative, that they do not approve scripts that portray women in a very negative light, you know. So it's a combination of factors, but
definitely. And can you speak a bit more to why it is so important that the creative industry, you know, and the media industry makes this direct commitment to combating GBV within the industry?
Say that again, sorry.
Oh, sorry. I'm saying, could you speak a bit more to why it is so important that a commitment, or like the statement that's going to be launched, why it's so important that the media industry as a whole and the creative industry is actually taking a stand to address GBV?
Yes, no, it is important that it happens this way, because, again, you know, the media is very influential. Whether it's through the news, it's important that as the media we come together and we say, we recognize the power that we have to change things, and we are working together collectively as the media to say, first of all, that this needs to change, and we are going to use the tools at our disposal to change this narrative. I mean, I cannot even say it in any other way. It's really about the power that the media has in society. And we've seen it. If it wasn't for the media, we wouldn't know about the atrocities in South Korea, in North Korea. It's the media that brings those things to us, you know. It is the media that tells us what happened with Black Lives Matter in the US. So the media is very powerful. It is important in informing people, in changing people's mindsets about certain things, you know. It's important in making sure that people are informed. So the media has a responsibility to make sure that we use our power in the right way. Yes.
Definitely. And, Zanele, we're nearing the end of Women's Month, and, the statement of commitment is being launched to combat GBV, which is so pervasive in our country, But of course, as we've seen with a lot of things that have, whether they're policies that have been launched or national councils or like all these different policies and mandates that have been launched to address gender-based violence, they haven't really seemed to make a change, essentially. So what would you say to critics who might say, okay, this statement of commitment's important, but how do we make sure it's not just another statement?
Yeah, and it's understandable to an extent when you receive this kind of criticism about policies and another statement and this and that. But the reality is that we have to start somewhere. Not so long ago, women were not coming out. We didn't know about this thing, we didn't know about the full extent of gender-based violence because society was quiet, and society was quietening women that wanted to speak out, right? So women have come out. They speak out now, and we have to do something about it, and we have to start somewhere. It starts with us making a commitment. We have to make a commitment to change things. And the success of these statements really lies with us. Have to implement this. If I say I, Zanele Mthembu, commit, to portray or to be part of portraying women in a particular way, it mustn't just be lip service. I must understand what that means and how it can really change society. So it really begins with each and every one of us, even with the critics. The critics must say, what am I criticizing and why am I criticizing it? Why am I not getting on board with this? Because the success of this is on all of us. That is the reality of it.
Definitely.
We have to be the change that we want to see in South Africa. You cannot leave it to the next person to do it for you. So these statements are important because they conscientize us to the reality that we live in. If we don't make these statements, then people are just going about and doing nothing. But it makes us to be very intentional, causes us to be very intentional and focused about what it is that we want to address. So each and every one of us needs to commit. And when we commit, we need to do.
Yes, definitely. Thank you for that. Awesome. I think being intentional and consciously making that choice is so important. But also just, going back to moving around, just back to SWIFT and the work the organization does, you mentioned all the ways the organization works to advocate for safe working environments for gender and for those of racial minorities. And I know one of the ways that the organization does this is through the PSA campaign of short films that aim to highlight what sexual harassment and discrimination looks like in the industry. Could you tell us a bit more about the campaign and how our listeners can support it?
Okay. Initially, the campaign was launched about 2 years ago. And we will, continue to remind everyone what sexual harassment looks like and what it is, because we cannot take for granted that we all know what sexual harassment is and how it presents itself. So that campaign is really to educate people using real life experiences of women. Those PSAs are informed by real stories from women, and to educate, to create awareness about sexual harassment. So to say that what you are seeing is not okay. You confronting a woman or touching her boobs or what is not okay. You looking at a woman in a certain way and making her feel uncomfortable is not okay. So this campaign is about really creating the awareness and educating. And we'll continue to do it because we realize that each time we show these PSAs, new people see them. And the more people, women and men, everyone in the industry is aware of what it is, the better it is for the industry, because it's not just about the victim, it's also about those that are watching and not, saying anything or doing anything about it, to say you are just as responsible as the perpetrator here. Yeah, so this campaign is very important in that. And the message cannot be spread enough. And repeated enough.
So is that, in terms of how we can support, is that just about making sure we watch these videos, but also that we share it on our socials? And just, I guess, is it about just encouraging that conversation amongst people as well?
Yes, it is. It is really about educating first and foremost, because the majority we found, even through research that was done, people just really don't know, what sexual harassment is, because it can be very subtle as well, you know. So it's about educating, but part of that campaign, yes, we create the awareness, but there's also promotion of the code of good practice in terms of how to handle sexual harassment. And all these resources are on the SWIFT website, so this campaign is not happening in isolation, but there's also the code of good practice, and also, saying to that, or encouraging people to know that that code needs to be adopted by the different production companies and implemented, but the resources are on our website.
Definitely. And how have you and SWIFT, I guess, as an organization, been coping during lockdown and the pandemic? Has it been affected at all, or have you been able to kind of keep working with the whole virtual life taking over?
We've been able to work, fortunately, because we're working right now on, we're working on a safety contact officer program. So a lot of it right now is in the drafting stage, is in the development stage. So we've been able to work, but a lot of our programs rely on us meeting and seeing each other. But we have tried to take some of the programs, online. We've had some webinars, we've had, panel discussions and that kind of thing online. So we've tried as much as we can, but also you can imagine we just have a deluge of stuff online right now, and things can get lost in there. But we try, especially because our members, pay to be there, so we've got to be doing something for them. It hasn't been easy. Everyone has been working long hours for some odd reason. Yeah, everyone is working long hours, but that's what SWIFT has been doing. Some stuff online, and continuing to develop, this program that we're working on, so that women have a place to report, because that's the one missing link, is that, yes, we've created the awareness now, but what next? And that's what we're working on now.
Definitely. That's definitely important. And Zanele, looking ahead, just in terms of the Step It Up project, what is your hope for initiatives like this? And do you have a message for how we can all work together to create a more gender equitable film and TV industry in the country?
Yes, and that's the key, working together. That is really the key, working together to create change, to make sure that there's awareness, but not just awareness, but there's support for women that are victims, that are complainants in the industry. This will not happen, as I said earlier, without each and every individual seeing that they have a role to play in this. This is not about women, UN Women's Organization. This is not about GIZ and all the other partners that are part of this. This is literally about each and every one of us in society taking a role in this. And saying, I can do something about this, particularly in the media space.
Definitely.
So if you are a script writer, know that you have the power to change the narrative about women.
Yeah, definitely. And just lastly, if there are any women within the media and film industry who may be, experiencing sexual harassment or feel like they've been discriminated against in some way, what advice do you have to them, and what kind of steps can they take to make sure that they're able to report what's happening, but also that they're kept safe?
Yes, and that's the thing. It's really been knowing what to do. On our website, we have resources, and one of the resources, the Code of Good Practice, and it's about knowing what is in that code and the fact that you are covered in that code, even as a freelancer, and ensuring that the production company that you are working for or that you are going to be working for has sight of that code and includes that code with your contract.
Okay.
And to enforce that code. That's the first thing.
Okay.
Secondly, we have a booklet on SwB, the sexual harassment guide, and anyone can access that resource on our website.
Yeah.
And that guide actually tells you exactly what sexual harassment is, what you can do, and where you can go for assistance. For instance, we have an agreement, a partnership with Lifeline for counseling, psychosocial support.
Okay.
And it's not an emergency line, but you can book a counseling session. But at the back of that handbook, which everyone really needs to have, so that you know exactly what sexual harassment is and where to go for help. There are resources in terms of what you can do. Because as SwB, we educate, we create the awareness, but we are not skilled or experienced or capacitated to deal with complaints. We can only point you in the right direction. And we are hoping that shortly we will be able to have this program running, the Safety Conduct Officer program, so that women can then have a central point which is independent as well, and where there's transparency and fairness, where women can go and report and they can receive all that help in one place.
Definitely.
Yes.
That sounds great. Thanks so much.
It's our website is where women can start.
Definitely. Great. We'll definitely be sharing that on our platforms as well, and sharing the link to the website so that people can go. But thank you so much again for speaking with us, Zanele, and thank you for all the work you do. I just mentioned before we even spoke to you earlier in the show, I was like, oh, so grateful to Zanele. She take time out of her crazy busy schedule and had a coffee with me when I was just starting out in my career. And I was saying that more than even just the advice you gave, just the fact that you made the time to speak to me and gave me such great advice, and also just made the time to see me, really meant so much. And it just really helped me on my journey. So thank you for that.
And even, it's a pleasure. And that's what we're here for, to assist each other, to navigate.
And coming on our show and speaking with us, it's really helpful, because we both in the entertainment industry, and I was telling Misha today, it's nice to have an experienced person come in and just talk to us and be
drop the gems,
and
also
here there's help, and if you ever need it, reach out, there is access.
Definitely. And all the great things that have been working. But thank you again, and good luck with everything, and I'm sure we'll keep in touch.
Yes,
thank you so much for having SwB online.
Definitely. No, obviously. I love it. Thanks again.
Bye,
Zanele. Bye. Have a good one. Bye. That was Zanele Mthembu, everyone. She is the chairperson of SwB, and also all-round media exec, film and television experience, badass, just all the things. And Zanele was just speaking to us about how the film and TV industry are actually going forward and purposefully combating gender-based violence in the industry, and looking at how, I think what was important was what she mentioned about how we within the industry and as creatives working need to be part of changing the narrative of how people view women, because there's that influence that comes from what you see on TV, right? And what you listen to on the radio. The creative industry has always played a really big role in society understanding issues. And I think by signing on to the statement of commitment, it's just the media and the creative industry's way of saying we will be purposeful and intentional, as Zanele had mentioned, in creating a more gender equitable sector in the media industry, but also to say, GBV happens not just within the industry, but within the country, and how can we use what we have and our knowledge and skills and the influence we have to address it. So that,
and like I like how you said, just be intentional. So be about it every day, even in a conversation, like can go that way and just go into it.
Exactly. And it's about, like you said, Kelly, like every day, like if you're watching a TV show and you're like, actually that's not a great representation.
Oh my gosh, all our shows we watch, I'm always like, Michelin, she's like, I know, I'm like, let's talk about it.
Like, are there some issues, talking in that way? But if you're also within the industry, if you're a woman, firstly, and you feel unsafe, or you feel that you have been discriminated against or experiencing sexual harassment, SWIFT is a great organization. They are around, and you can go on their website. As Zanele said, there's a code of conduct and a sexual harassment handbook, just so you can understand what it looks like. Because what Zanele said about sometimes we don't even know what it could look like within the workplace, as he said. So that will help as well. But the official media launch of the Statement of Commitment for Gender Equality in South African Media is today at 4:00. Oh, nice. It's a virtual dialogue that's taking place. There's going to be speakers and a panel discussion as well. So I think everyone, if you're able to register and go see what's that about. But also, I'm excited that there are these initiatives that are taking place. A lot of the times we're like, all these bad things are happening and there's nothing. What do we even start, or how do we do it? But as Zanele said, it's about taking that first step. And this is saying, hey, we're doing something about it. That's important.
We've tagged SWIFT and Zanele on our Instagram, so at Sisters Who Brunch 1706, and also on Facebook, Sisters Who Brunch, and Twitter.
It's great.
So you'll see, go on there, and then you can see her pages and SWIFT's, and you can go from there.
Yeah. And I think it's really interesting as well, because SWIFT is I remember when SWIFT came about, as I said to Zanele, like it is very new. And when it came about, I was like, I can't believe there hasn't been an organization like this before. But when they do hold film festivals, and I went to one, and it was just nice to be in a space of people who understand what you're going through, but also people who look like you, women of color, minorities, standing together and saying, hey, we're here and we also have stories we want to tell, and we're going to create that space to tell them. So yes, thank you to SWIFT for creating that. But
we just have a comment from Sabina.
Yes. Hey, Sabina.
She's like, hello, Golden Girls, sharing before I settle down.
Love it.
Thank you for joining.
Yes.
Commenting.
That's so great. Thanks everyone for listening.
Yes.
I can't believe it's almost the end of the show again. Another Wednesday.
Oh, I'm on Wednesday to end now.
Kelly stress, guys. If you do have access to a phone,
a smartphone,
that's the word.
App.
Please download Duke's app and make sure you tune in at 7 p.m. Don Callier will be performing, and you might see your weird auntie,
but it's DJ Lady M
in my capacity, pressing play on the music. No, I'm DJing, guys. I'm really cool on the DJ. Also, make sure there is still a pandemic around. Please, if you can, stay home, and if you can't, make sure that you follow the right protocols. Wear a mask, wash your hands, sanitize, and socially distance. The pandemic is still very much real.
Yeah,
we've seen it prop up again in Europe. So please don't think it's not. Also, this is just a quick aside about just making sure you know where your news is coming from. Last night, Kelly and I watched the news report that apparently there was a WhatsApp voice note hoax going around saying that alcohol is going to again be banned. So people flooded to the shops, no social distancing. And it's like, please don't listen to WhatsApp voice notes as the news. Don't take that as Bible. Please go to actual news outlets. And if the president was going to ban alcohol again, he has to announce it, because everyone has to be a part of it.
He'd be like, my fellas.
We would hear that. So yeah, that's just a side note of making sure that you know where your news is coming from, because really a WhatsApp voice note is not the news.
No, it's not.
Don't do that.
Fake news.
Exactly. It's a bit of a worry. But yeah, guys, we'll catch you all on Saturday.
Yeah, can't Zanele come back and
I know, right? Speak some more.
There's so much.
So many more questions, right? I know. She's so helpful. I like I said,
calm,
so
like just saying it. But I like how she got serious. She's like, make it intentional.
Yes.
Like, it's so true.
It's great.
Oh my gosh.
Thank you again. Thank you again for joining us. Thank you guys for listening. Have a great rest of the week. You made it halfway. You just got to make it the rest of the way. And then think about it. You'll see us on Saturday again.
Will you?
What? Why? Thanks again, y'all. Be safe. We're out. It's the Sisters Who Brunch on the 1873 FM.
107.3 FM.